Hey everyone, and welcome back to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 Gen 5 Edition. I'm Insetic, and it's still just me on this video. So before we go to level 2, we're going to look at the customization for your character, and customization for this really follows the previous Gen 5 Tony Hawk games. Again, Shaba Games basically took the engine and how this kind of mechanics worked and just sort of kept that. Though you are seeing that every level you complete with a skater, you will unlock more tricks to be able to select. So that means in this version, unlike the Gen 6 version, you cannot pick any trick you want. But you will have to unlock more as you go along. And so yeah, we're heading to level 2, which for the Gen 5 version is not Canada, it is Los Angeles. It is kind of weird. This version basically swaps Canada and Los Angeles, but otherwise follows the same order. And so I guess you're getting to see kind of a preview of what the Los Angeles level will look like for Gen 6 if you haven't seen that. Now I will say that the LA level for Gen 6 is definitely the most interactable level in that game based on what you can do. And so in Gen 5, where they really could not do that kind of programming, the level is kind of statically built in the aftermath of creating the earthquake. Spoiler alert, I guess. And so you will be able to get up onto the highway and get up onto the buildings to do the secret tape. And there's one interactable thing here, part of the challenge of grinding the electrical wire. When you grind that, you will cause some of the ground to kind of spit up and become ramps, otherwise where it's a flat street now. But yeah, otherwise, again, it's kind of same, general idea, but without that really interactable nuance. But yeah, again, it's really interesting to look around, and they nailed all of the physical set pieces, kind of going around, going back here at the start, and being able to get up on the building in the same way. And you saw all the same locales. Now that building over, I guess, to the right with the Nokia sign, the big Nokia sign, that's got something interesting, something different that is only in this Gen 5 version, that is not included in Gen 6, that we will see. But yeah, I'm excited to show that off. I guess while we get there, one of the other things I just want to point out is comparing between the two engines. When I was talking in the previous video about how each single trick has more weight in this older engine and such, especially when you do a gap in this older engine, it's kind of more noticeable to me. Like, in the Gen 6 version of Tony Hawk 3, you're riding around, and I know I'm getting gaps. I can see them. I'm not realizing that I am. But it definitely, there is more kind of impact when the previous engine, gives you kind of that sound effect of getting it. And maybe even when you get the gap in midair. I've noticed that the Gen 6 version likes to wait until you've landed to give you a gap, rather than just, if you've crossed the planes. But yeah, so grinding the electrical wire not only kicks up these parts of the street, as you could see, but also sets you up to get the hidden deck, where that is kind of up there where you basically need to grind and then jump up there. I'm not sure, you can do like a cheeky wall ride or something. But yeah, so going into this building, we could see these doors over here and a button across the way. And if we hit the button, that'll open up the doors of the elevator. So we're actually going to ride an elevator up to a place that was not, like I said, modeled as part of the Tony Hawk 3 Gen 6 version. And we're going to do this for one of the goals. Grind this wire down and across, and this will be to grind the elevator rail. Yeah, the elevator grind. That's awesome. And then even though it's kind of cool that these areas are kicked up by the challenge. I'm not quite sure how useful they are, as, shortcuts are really even extra things to get, like these stat points, for instance. It doesn't seem like those ramps line up with allowing you to jump up to one of those, which I think would have been cool. But yeah, definitely seeing these stat points up on the transmission lines, it can be kind of like, how do I get up there? How do I do those? And you can come at it from one way or at another way. I'm showing off the two ways that feels like, from the game's perspective, that I should be doing. So wall riding and jumping up and grinding the transmission line for that one. And then, am I going to go for... No, I'm going to come back for the kickflip gap, or kickflip challenge, where you need to kickflip over that kind of... this half pipe, kind of the over-enclosed area. Not over-enclosed, but whatever. Yeah, I'll kind of talk about that because I mentioned in the Canada level of the Gen 6 version that your stat points, there was nothing really in the game that forced you to have certain stats at certain levels, whereas here in the PS1 version, that gap to complete that challenge it actually kind of caught me by surprise. I did not feel like I had the speed and ollie enough stat points in there to reliably get it, especially for it being the second level. And, I'm kind of wondering in my head, I'm like, why did they swap Canada and Los Angeles in this version? And I know how the Canada level looks in the Gen 5 version, and I think this is just kind of my thought, that so the Canada version in Gen 5 has some pretty big jumps in it. And my thought is that they realized you were never going to be able to do those with your skater just at the second level. Because in this Gen 5 version, you cannot take stat points out to give yourself more points to put in other areas. It's like the previous Tony Hawks, where your stat points can never go down, you can just add more to them. And so they were like, oh shit, people are not going to be able to do these jumps in Canada. Meanwhile, there's nothing in Los Angeles that's really like that. Let's just swap the levels at the last second, sort of. And so that's, and my kind of thought for that is, again, this kickflip over the elevator lobby, where I'm actually going to wish I had a few more points in it. So maybe it was something where it was like, well, okay, they're going to struggle with that one challenge, but they can come back for it, or they might have put enough points in to be able to get it, versus, something in Canada that was just completely impossible. And so maybe that's why they flipped them, because it is pretty easy to get the 6 score in Los Angeles, since it's only the second level. I can definitely see where this would be more challenging if it was like the final 6 score you had to get in the game, if you had to get like 200,000 more points. But yeah, so with my stats where they're at, I need to trick from the top, fall down, have special, and then basically line up to get the momentum just right. And yeah. So I think really what I have left is some stat points, maybe some others. Let's see, I've gone around, I've done the Transformers. I did kind of just sort of get in and out on this LA level. I mean, obviously it's all cool to see. But oh yeah, so I'm showing off the movie theater. And again, since now this is in higher resolution and you're not playing on, like composite cables, you're able to see these kind of extra details, maybe some of these Easter eggs, the movie posters, and the text that was on top, which is kind of funny, kind of interesting. And so maybe in here, just based on what I said in part 2 of the Gen 6 playthrough, I want to look at balancing, kind of, because I don't have full stats in balancing here. I'm again, this is just second level of this version, but I just kind of feel like, and I know this is an oxymoron, I know this makes no sense, but losing your balance feels more controlled, where you can kind of expect the results, understand why, you're losing your balance when grinding or manualing as fast as you are, understand sort of where you are in terms of, well, how far, how long you can go until it becomes unmanageable. And then if this version and this engine had those kind of grind switches or manual switches, I feel like I would feel more confident in doing them. Whereas, again, comparing to the new engine, and you can go from managing it perfectly well to just like you blink and you're about to lose your balance here. And so here I'm looking at, hey, have I gotten any new tricks for doing level 2? And it looks like I've gotten a couple new grabs. And so if I didn't mention it at the very start, in this version, your character is stuck at their special tricks for a bit of the game. You cannot swap your character's special tricks out for any others at the start of the game, but you will start unlocking special tricks as you go through the game to swap to instead. And so now we're back on track. Just like in the other version, we are heading to level 3, the first competition, Rio, next time in Tony Hawk 3. So I'll see you then.